Welcome to the Explainer. Today we are diving into a huge, deeply ingrained question about human nature, empathy, and the modern political spectrum. We're looking at the spatial boundaries of our empathy, essentially who we care about, how far that care actually extends, and how our politics might be drawing the map of our moral worlds.
You know that tension, right? The kind you've probably felt during heated cultural debates or read about in opinion columns or maybe even argued about across the Thanksgiving dinner table. There's this really pervasive myth out there that people on the political left have somehow flipped human nature completely upside down. The idea is that they care more about distant strangers than their own close families. It's a compelling narrative, for sure, but is it actually true? Well, a brand new 2026 psychological study by researchers Law, Bay, Young, and Siropoulos finally puts this exact question to a rigorous test.
Section 1. The Moral Divide. Defining the conflict.
Okay, so making sense of all this basically boils down to two competing ideas. On one side, we have what's called moral inversion. This is the claim that liberals actively abandon their inner circle to prioritize distant strangers, which would imply a complete reversal of traditional human loyalty. On the other side, we have moral expansion. This suggests people aren't abandoning their inner circle at all. Rather, they're simply pushing the boundary of their moral circle further outward to include more people, all while keeping those close family ties fully intact.
To settle this and find out which of these theories reflects reality, we're looking directly at newly published 2026 research from the journal Political Psychology. This study is going to serve as our objective judge today. The core question we're answering: does having a more global sense of empathy actually require you to compromise your dedication to the people right in front of you?
Section 2. Testing the inversion theory. The data gathering.
And they didn't just pull a handful of random college undergrads for this. They ran 3 separate, incredibly rigorous studies. Study 1A looked at a nationally representative sample of 1,000 people in the U.S. Study 1B expanded that to over 3,000 participants, and Study 2 brought in nearly 900 more in a pre-registered format. We're talking about over 5,000 participants in total. This massive scope establishes some unshakable credibility. The researchers wanted to be absolutely sure of what they were seeing.
First up, they tested what's called unconstrained moral expansiveness. What does that mean? Well, basically, in Phase 1, participants rated their moral concern for different groups of people in a perfect, completely unconstrained world. In this scenario, empathy is totally free. You don't have to choose between caring for your mother and caring for a stranger across the globe. You literally just rate how much you care about each one independently.
And what they found here is honestly brilliant. In a completely unconstrained setting, the inner circle, the in-group, gets the highest moral concern across the entire political spectrum. Whether a participant was deeply conservative or highly liberal, their close relationships received the absolute highest ratings of care. Having greater concern for distant strangers did not predict reduced concern for close others. This right away completely debunks the myth of moral inversion in an unconstrained world. Everyone loves their family first.
Section 3. The Fixed Resource Test. Forcing the Trade-off.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. The researchers introduced a fixed resource allocation task. This raises the stakes entirely. By treating moral concern as a zero-sum game, they forced people to make hard choices. If you give a unit of empathy or resources to someone far away, you mathematically have to take it away from someone close to you.
Here's exactly how they forced participants to prove their actual priorities. Step 1, your moral concern is now treated as a strict, limited budget. Step 2, you are forced to divide this budget among various groups starting from your closest in-groups out to distant strangers. Because the budget is capped, every single choice is a direct trade-off. If the moral inversion theory were actually true, this is exactly where we'd expect to see liberals sacrificing their in-group budget to fund their out-group budget.
So what happens when people are forced into this corner? The results are absolutely fascinating. Even under strict constraints, closer connections remain the absolute top priority for every single political group. The budget goes overwhelmingly to the inner circle, regardless of whether the person leans left or right.
The in-group remains number 1, period. End of story. This cements a fundamental truth about human psychology. Nobody is actually flipping the moral hierarchy upside down. The biological and psychological drive to protect and care for our closest ties is the baseline for all of us, left, right, and center.
So here's the absolute crucial takeaway. Trade-offs do happen under constraint, yeah? But the difference between political groups isn't an inversion. It's simply a matter of proportion. Liberals do reallocate slightly more to distant categories than conservatives do. They shift a modestly larger portion of their fixed concern outward towards strangers, but they are absolutely not draining their in-group budget to do it. The hierarchy remains perfectly intact.
Section 4. Expansion, not inversion, the unifying reality.
Let's bring this all together. What should we take away from this explainer? First, in-groups are literally always the top priority. We all protect our own. Second, our ideological differences aren't really about who we love most, but rather about how far outward our boundaries of concern extend before they start to fade. And third, having greater concern for strangers absolutely does not mean having less love for your family. Empathy, as it turns out, is not an inherently traitorous emotion.
The researchers state it perfectly in their abstract. Quote, liberal moral universalism reflects circle expansion, not reversal in the ordering of concern. This objective scientific conclusion finally puts the persistent myth of moral inversion to rest. We aren't as alien to one another as the cultural narratives would have us believe. We just draw our borders slightly differently.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought to consider. How far outward does your moral circle expand? Where exactly do you draw the line between us and them? And what would it take to push that boundary just a little bit farther? It's a fascinating lens through which to view not just politics, but our very nature. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and I hope it gives you a powerful new way to understand the moral worlds of the people around you.